Number one, oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong. Okay. Number one, the most important thing I think is the market divide. This year, a real divide among K-pop acts. One of those divide is the domestic versus international groups. There are some groups that will be a huge hit domestically and groups that are geared towards the international market. I'm not saying that Kiss of Life will not make it internationally. It's just that for now they are domestic. They have an upcoming world tour. I'm assuming that this is going to be small scale at first, just to test the market for them. So I just want to make that clear. But it's becoming clear that there are groups that appeal more to the international market, and there are groups that appeal more to the domestic market. The clearest demonstration of that is actually Twice, because for Twice, when they started creating songs that would cater to the international market, they started losing their GP, their general public support from Korea. The last time that they charted, I think number one in Melon was 2021, I think. Fancy You. I think that was the last time that they went to number one. Prior to that, every release was number one for them. They would just dominate the charts. But because they started gearing their songs and their performances and even their image, because they all are, of course, growing, they're aging, right? So they of course had to change their sound, and they started losing the general public support. The other thing is the West and the East. There are bands that are really big in the East, and then there are bands that are bigger in the West. So for example, 17 has a really good following in Asia, but Stray Kids has a bigger following in the West. Now, I'm not saying that 17 will not eventually become as big as Stray Kids in the West, but for now, Stray Kids was able to penetrate the Western market first before 17. Now, a lot of you are going to ask, like, what about BTS? As I have mentioned before, I don't really classify BTS anymore as K-pop. Second is that I really want us to let go of the habit of comparing BTS to other groups, right? If we want to elevate BTS, it has to come to start with us. So not a lot of BTS except when it is necessary. Okay. On the second biggest, well, it's not really, this is in no particular order, but the next big event for 2024 was when Kakao founder was actually charged for stock manipulation. I think it was a shock to a lot of people, but very much downplayed by the media because it's Kakao, so they have a lot of contacts with the media. But there weren't a lot of outrage about what happened. So if you would remember, back in 2023, there was Hybe was actually trying to take over SM Entertainment. So they were trying to buy SM Entertainment, become the biggest shareholder of SM Entertainment. And SM Entertainment, the nephew of the founder, was really pushing back. He did not want Hybe to take over. So um so what eventually happened is that Hybe actually drops out. They dropped out. Um and by May 2024, though, actually beginning of 2024, reports came out that someone reported that Kakao was actually reported for stock manipulation. And nobody really named anybody on who actually filed the claim. Eventually, it was actually Hybe. But because it is a criminal charge, then the prosecutor's office actually took over. So the founder was actually indicted. He went to prison and he was there for more than 100 days. Finally was let out on bail. But it is a huge thing because Kakao is a big company. But as I've said, because they have a lot of contacts with the media, there is not a lot of coverage. I mean, if this was the US, you would, like, the reporters will be swarming this guy day in and day out. But he has been essentially left alone after he was released from prison for out on bail, after he was let out on bail. And again, that is because they have a strong contact with the media. So, but I hope that, because it seems that the evidence is actually rock solid. I hope that he actually pays for the crimes that he committed. And if this actually, if he gets the sentence that he deserves, this is going to serve as a warning to other companies that will try to get in the way of business illegally. It is, for some reason, as big as Kakao is, there is this desire to get involved in K-pop, and we saw that in the National Assembly as well. Like they're already in those higher ups, those positions of power, and they're still wanting a piece of the entertainment which is puzzling to me. Like, why get involved in K-pop when you have so much on your plate to deal with? You're, as an assembly person, like you're a founder of Kakao, why get into the business of entertainment illegally, that is? So anyway, if he actually gets if he is founded guilty, then this is going to serve as a warning to other companies who may want to play this game the same way Kakao did. Okay. Bang Luna said, if SK wants to play in international financial markets, they will have to clean up their act. I definitely agree. Belinda said, Kakao and SM are under investigation for Kakao for stock manipulation. Right. Next, virtual idols, the rise of virtual idols. So Plave is the most successful among them, but just to make it clear, Plave is not AI. All right, there are actual people behind the voices, and whenever they do their live stream, whenever they do their radio show, there are actual human beings behind those voices, and their music videos are actually the singers. They actually have mocaps, so their movements are actually being traced by technology. It's just that for now they choose not to reveal their faces, and of course we have to respect that, right? Because they don't want to reveal their own identity, so they're not made up. It's just that they don't want to reveal their faces. That's why they are using animation to represent themselves. But Maeve, who looks so real and they're so cute and so pretty, they're AI, and of course Nevis, and there's several more others. They aren't as popular as Plave or as successful as Plave, but they're successful in their own right. I do think that this is going to lay the foundation for more AI work, and in terms of, sorry, more work, more AI driven content in music in the future. I've mentioned to you before that the metaverse, NFTs, no matter how you hate it, is going to be the future. If you use a bank, any kind of bank, especially if you are in the West, like Europe or Canada or the US, um, or if you are in first world countries like South Korea, United Arab Emirates, all of those banks that you are dealing with. Sorry, I'm from Asia, so I they already are either on their way to working with a blockchain, or they are already in the blockchain, and that is their preparation to go into NFTs. So they want to convert your assets into NFTs. They want to convert money, the transaction of money, into NFTs. So that being said, the AI content of entertainment, it's a bridge towards a more digital world for the music industry in the future. So I think that metaverse is going to be the new social media, the new content channel. This is going to be where new educational stuff will be accessible. As I've said, for the metaverse, instead of just reading about a story, you can go inside the metaverse and actually digitally interact with mythological creatures, or watch the signing of the Declaration of Independence by our forefathers and stuff like that. So I think that's going to be true to music as well. Instead of just watching a music video, you're actually going to go inside the metaverse and participate in the music video. How cool is that? Okay, so but this is huge, especially because they're seeing the success with Plave. I think for a really long time, this is going to be the staple process to create AI representations of several musical acts and then allow other people or fans to interact with those AI. Okay. Um, Another important thing that happened in 2024 is the recognition of substance and not just K-pop's substance or Korean music substance. RM's documentary and its international recognition is actually paving the way once again for the international market to actually realize just how much substance there is in several music acts that are from Asia. So because of his documentaries, he's sort of opening the conversation and sort of inspiring people to really look into what K-pop has to offer, because for the longest time, for people, K-pop is just it's just manufactured stars, dolls that sing and act the way they are being told to. But with his documentary, he's proving and that there is actual message in what they are saying. So I think eventually down the road, people are going to look back into this documentary and realize that this thing that he put out, that RM put out, actually inspired so many other people to look into K-pop a little deeper. It is not getting, this is just based on my own opinion. I think RPWP, the documentary, is not getting the kind of respect it deserves from K-pop. It's getting the respect of critics, like of film critics, but it's not getting the respect from K-pop, from the Korean market or the Korean media, or the Asian media in general. They're just like, for them, it's just like, oh, it's another BTS achievement. But no one's really looking under the hood and actually analyzing the work the way that I'm hoping for and the way that he deserves. And it's such a waste because I really feel that because of this, I really think that because of this documentary, a lot of people are going to look into K-pop and just give it a chance. They're going to think that, okay, if the leader of the biggest boy band in the world can come up with something like this, maybe there are others who can come close to what he has done. So I hope that K-pop and Asian media and Korean media will really give this documentary the attention that it deserves. Okay, I'm ranting because I'm really frustrated. I feel like he's not getting the respect and the work is not getting the respect that it deserves. It's frustrating. Next is the West's adaptation of the K-pop system through Vicha and Cat's Eye. There's a lot of talks about K-pop getting inspiration or appropriating Western style or African American style. I'm not gonna get into that, but for once, the the K-pop system is actually being adopted by Western labels. So Cat's Eye, as you know, is actually a joint venture between Geffen and Big Hit. Sorry, Hybe. So that in itself is proof that they are, Western labels, big labels, are actually getting into the action. Like they're actually sitting down and looking into how Korea is actually doing it. Hoan said, I saw the documentary twice. Um, okay. So this is Cat's Eye. This is Vicha. This is the girl that sued. Next, talent and marketing. This is going to be a very, very difficult template to follow. How Jungkook and Big Hit actually did it is not exactly a new formula, but it is a formula that will only work if you have real talent. So Jungkook alone would have dominated. Had he released seven without a collaborator, he would have dominated. But what Lato was able to provide is radio spins because she is in radio and she has a label that supports a US label that supports her. So that allowed the song to get radio spins. Um, so And then with 3D, same thing. Jungkook's collaboration with any of the people that you collaborated with in the past actually never pulled the same number as he did. So they were never as big as he was. Like, if you give Jungkook a world tour, he'll sell out stadiums, no problem. Jack Harlow can, right? So that in itself proves that JK is actually the bigger star. But in the US, Jack Harlow has a stronger pool when it comes to radio. So by the time, because of these two collaborations, by the time that he released Standing Next to You, the world already knew him. And when I say the world, I mean radio. So it was an easier pitch for Hybe US to actually get him radio spins for Standing Next to You because I already knew him. But the thing is that there are other acts that are doing this same strategy. They're collaborating with Western artists that they think will help them with radio. And it's working. I mean, I don't want to name names because I don't want to invite invite hate, but there are a lot of acts that are doing this. But it isn't working the same way as it did with Jungkook because you do need quality materials, quality voice, and the star power of Jungkook. There is what we call, I'm sure you've heard of this, the X factor. Like, if you want to become a celebrity, the biggest celebrities have this X factor, something about them that you can't identify, but they have it. And Jungkook has that. He has that pull. He has that. He has the ability to command attention. If you put him in the middle of a stadium with 100,000 people, 90% of those people will end up looking at him. He has that X factor. So that's one. You need the quality of voice, and Jungkook is just a damn good singer. And of course, he chose the right materials for him, the right songs for him for his voice. So a lot of people can try this same route, and they are trying the same formula, but they won't work as well as it worked for him unless they have everything that Jungkook has. Okay. Next is the how fans actually prove the irrelevance of media. So when that Suga thing happened, we all know that he just armies just charted his song, that he ended up like 2-year-old songs were actually charting, that at some point he owned half of the Billboard chart. Just that's how this is the story. Suga hasn't released any music for over a year, but his fan base continued to consume his solo work in huge numbers in the US. In fact, sales of many of the tracks he's released outside of BTS surged recently. So August D, the songs that he released as August D, that Suga actually ended up occupying 50% of all spaces on one Billboard chart. So that this proved that the media may have the power to paint any kind of story that they want or picture that they want, but it is no match against the actual moving power of the fans. And that also happened with many other groups. As you know, Le Seraphim actually went through a hate train. They were, for some reason, of all the groups, they chose Le Seraphim to be a representative of bad singing. Like, duh. But for a really long time on Twitter, on Reddit, and many other spaces, people were just claiming that they were bad singers. But they were booking things and they were getting invited left and right in different international performances. That only goes to show that actually proved just how powerless Korean media is. And when I say Korean media, that even includes social media. That it doesn't matter what Koreans think, it doesn't matter what haters try to actually get out there. At the end of the day, if you're good at what you do, you're good at what you do. Okay. Jimin also had one of the best. I don't know if it is a strategy that he's actually decided to use, or just how this is just how the natural course of his career came. So he is dominating both UK and US chart. But what is good about what happened to him is that for Like Crazy, he's proven that he can launch a song to number one of Billboard Hot 100. And to this day, he still is the only solo act in history to debut a non-English song on top of the Billboard Hot 100, right? So he's proven that. But with Who, he's now proving that he can actually keep a song inside Billboard Hot 100. He is now he now has the fourth Who. Is now the fourth longest Billboard Hot 100 charting song by an Asian native act in history. And when I say Asian native, it's because Billboard started calling Olivia Rodrigo and Bruno Mars Asians. So I have to be clear. Billboard Hot 100, fourth longest Billboard Hot 100 charting song by an Asian native act in history. So this is a different route from how Jungkook is doing it, but I think they're headed in the same direction. For Jimin, because he chose to write his own songs for now. I'm gonna guess that eventually he's gonna want to try and work with other songwriters and other producers, and that's fine as well. It's just that this is the route that he decided to take. But he is solidifying his position in where he wants to continue his career as a solo act. Um, and and this is going to be a less tested formula because it's hard to actually write your own song that will make it internationally. Who he did not write. Jimin didn't write Who, but the entire idea came from him. So this is going to be there will be less acts that will try this strategy, but they will try it nonetheless. I think they're going to most likely try the strategy of Jungkook because it's going to appear like it's an easier thing to do. It's not, but okay. Another thing is YG's continuous liquidation. They have been liquidating their companies for 4 years now. As you can see, back in 2021, they started liquidating all their companies, not all, but many of their companies. So they first started selling their golf company. That and for a time, people thought, okay, they're gonna start recovering because Blackpink actually went on tour, and they were talking about, oh, they sold out concerts and whatever. But the end of last year, as we know, they still ended up with a negative. And they continued liquidating their companies. So this year, they liquidated their dance management subsidiary, YGX. Bang Luna said BP's concert tour lost money. Yeah, they did. They gave away a lot of tickets in order to claim the sold out tour. But anyway, that's their. I don't necessarily. Number one, this is not Blackpink's fault. Okay, this is all the decision of the management. But it was important for them to be able to claim the more than 1.8 million people attended their concert and whatever. And the only way for them to do that is if they claim sold out. So they had to give away a lot of the tickets. That's how I ended up actually watching. Okay, next one of the several of the concerts. Next is finding a new market. So Twice is one of the most enduring groups in South Korea. They've been around 9 years and they're still doing it. They're still together and they're still killing it. But as I've said, the price of their international success, because they are the very first girl group to sell out SoFi and MetLife. Imagine that. They sold out SoFi and MetLife. To think that everyone kept on saying that they're a nobody in the US or in Europe, but they sold out those venues, but at the expense of losing their Korean fans. Well, not really losing, but they lost the general public support because they geared their music more to the West now. And also their music is also evolving because they're growing older, right? They're not like their 20s, and they're not 16 or 20 or 21 anymore. They're Some of them are very close to turning 30. So they had to adjust their style, and that meant losing many of their music. Joan said the songs BTS members will be writing after their military service discharge, especially Suga, it's going to be epic. Um, so so I think this is one lesson that a lot of people are now learning. People meaning management companies or other K-pop acts, they're learning that it's not hard, it's not easy to do what BTS did before, where they were able to build their Western market while they were building their Korean market. And for many of them, it will have to be the route of twice, where they will have to establish themselves in Korea. And once they start evolving and start going after the Western market, they're going to have to give up their Korean fan base. With BTS, it was the exact opposite. They first made it internationally. They had more fans internationally before they actually started developing their fan base in Korea. I'm not saying that they didn't have any fans in Korea. It's just that it wasn't as strong as it should have been. Okay. Katarina, bye, Katarina. Bye. Drive safe. Okay. Next is the new route to global respect, is how I call it, because Taeyong is just doing things very, very differently. I don't think he's going to compete in the same pop, like super pop kind of market. I think he has locked his sight on jazz and R&B. I'm pretty sure that he is, and many of the things that he has released is a combination of jazz and R&B and pop. And I think eventually he's going to try pop, but I think he kind of felt like he found where he belongs, and that is really more on jazz and R&B. And I think with the last record that he established, having released a jazz song, the best-selling jazz song on its first day on Spotify, I think this is one way for him to shake off the K-pop label internationally. If he is able to, and I think he will eventually, he's going to come up with a really solid album that he will be able to promote, because none of his albums he was able to promote properly because they all had to go to the military and start serving. I think eventually he'll be able to produce a song that he can really, like, he will come up with an album that he can really promote. He will have time to promote. And once he captures that market, that's going to be his ticket to actually shaking off the K-pop label. Um, from here, I think many other K-pop acts will be inspired by this, and partly with Jin as well. They will look for that specific genre that they like and they enjoy, that they can establish themselves in order to break away from the K-pop label, because it's holding them down. I mean, we just need to admit it, that it's holding, that label is holding a lot of people down. Even BTS, if they are, once they are labeled K-pop, a lot of the recognition goes away. There's so much stigma around that name. Content pump is really key. Stray Kids were actually neck and neck with other groups like TXT, NCT, and the one thing that played to their favor is that they were just pumping a lot of content. They kept on producing albums after albums after albums. Their last one, Chick Chick Boom, actually they had a collaboration with a Western actor, so Ryan Reynolds. So that played to their advantage, but they wouldn't have been able to book those things if they weren't active and actively seeking all of these partnerships. So that is actually what allowed them to sell out many of their concerts. Now, I know that they're getting a lot of flack for not selling out this and that. Just want to make it clear, they did sell out all of their day one. Okay, so they added another date for, so this is their SoFi day one. If you go into verify, so if you go into the resale, you'll see some, but you see it's still, those are resale, but the original tickets, they're all sold out. So the ones that haven't sold out are day two, and they're not a lot, so let's give them a break. They deserve this after all the hard work that they have been getting. I know people are going to say, oh, they're trying to be the next BTS. Nobody wants to become, they know that they will not become the next BTS. I don't think that's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to become the best Stray Kids version of themselves. And as I've said, they work so hard, they deserve the success. But this is key. They've produced more, they've worked more, and that allowed them to get to this level faster than everyone else. I'm not saying that TXT won't have their own stadium tour, or that NCT will not be able to do the same thing. It's just that I'm saying they did it first because they were faster in terms of work. Another important milestone is the victory of Attract. As you know, it was actually Attract's decision to terminate. So they went through several lawsuits. The three members, initially four members of 50/50, sued Attract. Eventually, one member decided to go back to Attract to continue her work. And then the other three went on with the lawsuit. But the court favored Attract now, but eventually Attract decided to just terminate the contract of the three members. But Attract is actually suing the three members for a civil lawsuit, so they're making them pay, or at least that's what Attract is trying to do, to get them to pay penalties. So they're probably going to settle and do it the same way TVXQ are doing it. But it's a monumental decision because it reaffirms everything else that the court has done when it comes to cases like this. In the first term of the contract, almost always, unless it is absolute abuse, they will honor the contract in favor of the company. And I think K-pop's effort to go into the international market is actually through going through some growing pains. um, they are now starting to expand. JYP has a US office. Of course, Hybe, as we know, has a US office. SM Entertainment actually has been in the US for a while now. They just haven't done anything. But many other companies are trying to establish their presence in the US. I think YG is going to be next. But they are, and in their expansion, it's natural for them to have growing pains. So they are going through a lot of things, and that includes lawsuit. So KG of Vicha actually sued them in the video that I posted yesterday. I think a lot of you are giving your 2 cents, like what you think, who's saying the right, or who's lying, or who's telling the truth. But the doesn't change the fact that they are going through growing pains. These are just growing pains. All industries go through something like this when you are expanding. Okay, but it's going to mature eventually. They are going to perfect their process, or at least make it better, to get to a point where it's the lawsuits are going to be acceptable. I mean, in not just enough lawsuits, the usual lawsuits that companies go through or get. Next is the military service template. Now, the first person that sort of is experiencing the benefit of the way BTS structured their military service is Jin, right? So they sort of planned it out so that almost all of them are going to come out right around the same time. But then Jin went ahead first, um, and that allowed him to finish his service early, so to cover for the time when the rest of the members are actually still serving. So no one has done it the way that they have, or at least no one has done it this way, meaning they actually made sure to leave enough content while they are away. Sorry. So for TVXQ, the two members that was left behind in SM Entertainment, Yuno and Changmin, they actually served almost right at the same time. So that allowed them to continue their career once Yuno was actually, sorry, Changmin was actually discharged. And Big Bang was actually planning to serve at the same time. The four of them, the four members, except Sungri, they were serving right around the same time. I think the gap was like 3 months in between. But then Sungri was the one who didn't want to serve with the rest. But that was their plan. They wanted to serve together and shorten the time that they are not together as a group. But Sungri sort of screwed up everything. But anyway, so BTS is actually the first group that did it successfully, where they were able to plan their service enough so that they are leaving continuously, releasing content, and by the time that they're about to run out, Jin actually is out with the new material. I think with this, other groups are going to start doing it this way, or at least they're going to try. But now it's showing, because BTS was never out of people's mind. The name of BTS has always been in the front page of the newspaper, quote unquote. So, and he has benefited from that, because we never forgot him. The public has never forgotten him, and the media has never forgotten him, because they planned it so that we are continuously being fed by material. So I think eventually, after this, other groups will try to plan it out this way as well. Okay, those are my 10, or I think 15 important events for 2024. I want to do a prediction on what's going to happen in the next life, but I want to get your inputs. What do you think happened that I missed out that you consider to be very important? Okay, let's go through some comments. I want to see Hybe. Danji said, I want to see Hybe have an office in European market. They are missing a space there. They definitely are. I think the next market they will try to get into will either be Germany or UK. Probably UK because a lot of the events in Europe actually happens in the UK. Um, it's just that Germany is the third biggest market, I think. The third biggest US market. Is just that the language is so different. Um, Angel Star said international fans. Okay. Bang Luna said you have to have the fan base interested enough to support the content without personal marketing. True. Although I think other groups or other management companies, if the group members are willing to serve together, they can reinforce it with their own marketing. Uh, but yeah, I mean, yes, of course, I'm being unfair in that BTS was just in a different. They're a league of their own, right? So it's so almost hard to say, oh, BTS did it that way. Let's try it because it's like, there's a lot more into that strategy, and a lot of it really comes from their personal relationship with armies. So you are correct in that, but I also think that others will try it and just reinforce it with their marketing.